Hello there, YouTubers. Welcome back to my channel and the program. It's the 5th of May, year 2025 at Australian Eastern Standard Time. And probably you can tell that I don't find myself in an adequate shape. Well, mental health wise, in terms of mental health, though I kind of, at least managed to sort of recover a little bit from several consecutive episodes of severe depression over the past several days. And unfortunately, I've still got a lot ongoing, both around me and both around me physically and mentally or spiritually on my mind. And I just having too many or too much burdens to actually relax or chill properly. And I do suppose I myself desperately need a proper and adequate holiday sooner or later, or I am bound to self delete or self destruct. And now I see that it's such a mistake to send that wicked woman an email requesting for further negotiations and peace talks to get some matters resolved, though I doubt they will ever get resolved unless one of the parties kick his or her bucket. Say, well, judging from the status quo, from my status quo, judging from how I had been feeling, it's likely going to be me who will kick the bucket, aka to die. And I mentioned about overcoming the fear of death in my previous videos. Well, at least in one of my previous videos. Well, about such matter, you kind of have to, whether you like it or not, everyone has to come to terms with death. Either your own death, or deaths of your loved ones, or those that at least kind of truly care about you, about your well-being, blah blah blah. And well, in in either case, sooner or later you have to come to terms with death, the the inevitable of pretty much each and every terrestrial or organism or life form well, sadly, well, but certainly, and a painless and instant, more preferably, you know, also a dignified death will certainly spell more than just relief and liberation to me, at least to the current me, since I will no longer I will no longer have to fear. I will no longer have to suffer from constant attacks, as well as persecutions of depression and anxiety and fear of not being able to keep up with bills, with paying for my own living expenses, and my retirement, my future life on planet shit Earth, blah blah blah, all those shite, and can assuming I do get, assuming eventually I do get, I do get to die relatively speaking painless and dignified and swift death. I certainly consider it, I certainly consider it the best, or I should say the most ideal outcome, the most ideal final fate. Well, speaking and considering from my own current perspective, since I have now I have utterly no one but myself to rely upon to withstand and nearly constant, relentless, non-stop persecutions from that wicked woman / my alleged birth mother, who just knocked on my doors yesterday, until like 9 o'clock, at night, and and also today, from not exactly non-stop, but she came here and knocked on my doors at least twice, and then eventually she left, well, and even now, she still tried to manipulate me, tried so hard to convince me into believing that she meant well, that she meant to to quote unquote, not the exact quote unquote, but you get the idea, to improve my current living condition, and I still doubt that somehow, my guts, my instinct tells me that she wishes me ill more than anything else, so that she gets to have you know, all my, all, everything my old man left. Well, as, you know, so-called legacy and inheritance. But, I don't really, I don't really suppose it the money, or how much. I don't really suppose at this moment, however much however much amount of money my old man left me with doesn't really matter, since I have already had my mental health nearly completely shattered and utterly destroyed, which made me so so afraid to leave this flat, so near frozen state, trapped here for nearly 5 years, since the the outbreak of you know what. um yeah, it's maybe, my birth year has been always inherently a mistake. I shouldn't have come here. Um I shouldn't have gotten so attached to my grandma, to my old man, to to everything good, to everything and everyone good I once had. And well, though I may not be stuttering as much as I did um during my previous filming sessions, since whenever I feel the urge to stutter, I try to take some deep breaths and try to chill and try to you know disengage, the to try to disengage from the survival mode, um switched on in my brain, and then switch, to a kind of, more chill, more tranquil, or you know slash mode of calm calm calmness and adequate composure. um but I just don't know exactly what steps I should be taking in order to make my life less hostile, less painful, and more, bearable. Beg your pardon. Well, since I didn't, have I suppose I didn't have something adequate for dinner, since I need to save money, and recently I haven't got much cat cash flow, flowing into my account. So so I have to cut a lot of corners here and there, and to make the matters worse, my adopted mom, left again, to take care of his, to take care of her, newly born grandsons, slash my nephews. And I, like I said, I don't really blame her, for having to do so. But that's certainly, more or less, left me in a more precarious situation. Though I did have, previous experience surviving such precarious, more precarious situation before, namely, starting from October last year, year 2000, year 2024, until recently, yes, until yesterday, yeah, which until March, yeah, until early to mid March. I beg your pardon for my poor memory, but yeah. So yeah, my basically yes, my adopted mom slash one of my aunts, stayed here. Not exactly at this flat, but near me, in the same city, for about a month and a half, and then left. Yeah, since she kind of had some opportunities, to take some breaks from having to look after those two newly born infants. But yes, that's beside the main scope of of this discussion for this video. Nevertheless, I just still I still struggle to face fears of possibly acting upon my suicidal thoughts and some other intrusive thoughts, all alone, all alone in a foreign land, say, namely Thailand, without any backup, with my current status quo, with my current, mental health status or condition. So, I am still, either delaying or, kind of also procrastinating on physically taking, that historical leap of faith again, to Thailand. Since I found my mind just too chaotic and too messed up, too too unstable, too volatile, to actually depart from this flat, so soon. But considering the amount of the amount of money, the amount of funds I have in my possession is quickly dwindling. Um, I just find myself completely stranded, in another highly treacherous, highly tricky dilemma within the already difficult hardships I got myself stranded in. Um, it's just way too much, and I just got so tired of having to, gaslight myself into believing that things will get better. Though, more or less, I suppose, I imagine more or less, or more all often than not, we all kind of have to gaslight ourselves by romanticizing sufferings and hardships. Um, every now and then, though I'm not exactly, disseminating the message against the practices of, or the commitment of self-improvement. No, not at all. Though in my case, I have been, faithfully devoting myself to, to practices and discipline of self-improvement, pretty much, day after day for more than a year, and I still, see things just, you know, pretty much remained stagnant, if not have gotten worse or deteriorated. Um, well, maybe, even painful, even a painless, much less a dignified death will become a luxury for me. Well, there are just, so little to enjoy here in this life, as far as I can perceive and imagine, as far as I'm concerned. And it so surprises me greatly that I can still speak English, to the extent that most of you guys can still make sense of what I've said. And yes, I do more or less consider it a miracle at this point. Well, maybe yes, some of my hard work does pay pay off, though not, remotely, not even remotely a large chunk of my hard work. Well, how much, how I wish I just, die in my sleep painlessly, peacefully. tonight, since I pretty much have nothing to enjoy doing in this life. I don't nowadays even enjoy fapping, or in indulging in loads of wicked, twisted sexual fantasies and imaginations. So maybe at least some sayings, at least some verses in the Bible do hold true, more or less. Here and there say say suffering in the flesh does kind of prevent one from sinning, at least physically, though it's next to impossible, if not totally impossible, to sin in your mind. So yeah, I mean, other than that, other than those shite that we do, say fapping to porno, or banging women slash having sex, playing video games, traveling, have fun. What else can we do to distract ourselves from the fear of death, and the fear of facing death, the fear of returning to the state of total oblivion and non-existence, while assuming that assuming on the other side of this life, nothing else but non-existence awaits us. Or in other scenarios, say heaven or hell, or whatnot. I'm just so tired. I've gotten so tired of having to gaslight myself. I've gotten so tired of having to romanticize suffering and hardships. I am so much exhausted by having to more or less pretend or act as if nothing bothers me, despite the fact that nowadays pretty much everything I have to do to sustain my own living has become a huge burden, a huge huge and daunting liability. And nowadays I even struggle to get up from bed in the morning, though well, since my current circadian rhythm has been well, at least largely successfully reset, though I can't really say for the future, though. Even in cases in in situations where I've got my circadian rhythm completely messed up by getting up at sunset, I still more or less struggle to pull myself up from bed, for those who unfortunately have suffered or had suffered from severe depression and anxiety, or blah blah blah. I know, and I can relate to you guys without a shadow of doubt that you guys can relate to me as well as to what I am talking about here. Um, so yeah, I just, it's just so freaking overwhelming and exhausting to just put, put myself together as I should, as a human being, much less, to stand straight, to keep my head up in a, fairly hostile and challenging environment. Other than this, though, I already, find this living in environment mildly, if not already, at least more moderately hostile. Um, I just don't know, man. I just, and one day, I just wish that, or at least hope that I will, cease to know anything. And let's hope that I will never ever self delete or even self cancel myself on YouTube, since I have already I've already come across a few YouTubers who at least once or twice unlisted or just plainly deleted all their videos. Let's hope that I will never have to come to that, though though although I there's no 100% guarantee that I won't come to that. Nevertheless, I do my utmost best to make do with what I have, with what's left of my motivation and passion and the burning willpower, the burning desire to crawl, to crawl my way out of the symphony of love and hate, life and death, and light and darkness. As my the description of my channel at the About tab says. Yeah, so I suppose I've talked enough for this session, and let's see what the future holds for me. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for being with me to the end of this video, of this filming session, and yeah, you guys take care. Have a lovely day, or at least have a better day or night than I am. Yeah, and if God still willing, see you around on YouTube and elsewhere. Bye.